Okay guys, continuing the great bass boat search of 2020-2021, aka titled Watch This Before You Buy a Bass Boat. So this will be our fifth boat we reviewed. This is actually part 2. This is video 9, but this is part 2 in the Caymus CX21. If you've not seen the rest of these videos, I'll post right there if your device allows it at the top of the screen, the whole playlist of all the boats we reviewed so far. We got more boats to look at this weekend and next week, so lots more videos coming up. You guys keep asking me, am I going to do this? Why haven't I done a Vexus? Why haven't I done a Falcon? Guys, I'll get to them, right? This is not my full-time job. I'm getting to them as fast as I can, and this is time consuming. And I'm not in a hurry, so you just got to bear with me on this. I am not sitting on these. I am posting them as I make them, so just bear with me. So let's go back to the Caymus. We're going to pick up right where we left off. By the way, before we do that, actually, let's talk about two things. Number one, the Caymus boat. So there is a CX21 and a CX21 Pro. It is the same boat. The only difference is the Pro has a package with it. So it's got electronics, and I don't recall exactly what it is, but like I think it's got a kill protector and a couple of other things on it. So it's a little fancier package, all of which you could add to the CX21. But if you like the options that they have on the Pro, it's actually a little bit cheaper. So the cheapest way to buy the boat, if you like those options, is to buy the Pro. But obviously it's your call. And so Scott's boat was the CX21. And another thing I should also mention, I cannot recall what it's called. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen right there. But there's these plastic things that go on the side of the cockpit that kind of dress it up a little bit. And Scott doesn't have them. Every boat I've ever had, I never knew what they were called before, but you just saw there what they're called. Every boat I've ever had before has had those. I like it without them. The boat feels roomier. My experience in my Ranger was that stuff kind of dulled. That plastic over the years kind of dulled out a little bit. It's an add-on option. I wouldn't add it to a boat. The boat's bigger. You're not going to have as many rattles. You got nice clean glass on the side of the boat. So that's just a thought as I reviewed this boat, and something you could add on that I would not add on now, having seen Scott's boat without it and another boat that did have it. So I apologize, I can't remember what those were called, but you'll see them right there. The other thing I want to show you, this is so cool. I meant to show you guys this the other day. So one of the things I really like, and Dickie Newberry claims to be the guy behind this, I don't know if that's true or not, but on the luge reels, on the torsion knob on the side of the reel, on the right side of the reel, there's a little knob that you can set to tell you what line size is on that reel. And it looks like that right there, okay? It's called a speed dial. I don't know how well you guys can see that or not, but it shows an F and an M or an S. So, excuse me, or an M or a B. So either you point it to the number and you know you have fluorocarbon, or braid or mono, right? Which that's pretty easy when you look at the reel. But the cool thing about this is it only comes on the very expensive luge reels. Luge has now made it an option that you can buy these. They're 19 bucks a piece, so you can dress up, and according to Luge, they'll fit on any of the luge reels. I like to bring you guys stuff like this, kind of like the speed cutters I show you, and not necessarily luge stuff, just cool stuff. The battery thing I showed you in the last video. Just cool stuff that I run across. That's a cool thing. For 19 bucks, Tackle Warehouse carries them. You can get them so you can dress up your luge reels, not just dress them up, so it makes them more functional, right? You can pick up a reel and go, 20-pound fluorocarbon, that's what I want. Anyway, back to the the Caymus CX21 boat, and then I'll come back with the grades at the end of this. Here we go. All right, boys, I put him out of his own boat, so we're going to do the tippy test. So all the way to the side over here, and I'm actually standing because there's rods everywhere, but all my weight over here on the starboard side is 2.3 degrees. Let's see if we're listing it all the ways you got it. So you've got a little list just based on the amount of junk you got in here. About a 1 degree list, so that means this side is going to be probably about a 1.3. Actually about square. Let's check the back. So if I go to the back deck, can you see what we got there? No, that's okay. That other camera will read it. Okay. So So it's 0.9 degrees. And on this side, so it's going to be more.
It just went off.
No, it's still ringing.
No, the camera went off.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine. So it was 3.3 degrees. So based on the way he's got it loaded, which we talk about quite a bit, and I will say, he's got a whole bunch of stuff in here. And I understand why. He's up here practicing for a championship tomorrow, and he's 2 hours from the house, so you basically bring everything. Because had you been up here before 3 days ago? So he packed everything he's got, brought it up here. But the boats, I believe that stability is going to be real similar to the other, to both the L and the C boat and the Charger as well. They're all less than the Bass Cat was, or at least the Bass Cat, the hybrid we measured. So it's a big stable boat. And I'll recap this. We're going to fish longer, but there's really nothing I dislike about the boat. Got the same issue we've talked about in the past with you really can't see the graph, in-dash mounted graph, but it's also, as I've talked about, I don't think you can fix that, right? Because you'd have to have a dash up to here. I will say I don't like the way he's got his mounted because it's really hard to see over, but I've seen the same thing in other boats too. You just, unless you really spread them out on the side, which I think I saw Stephen Johnston had done that in one of his boats, where he had spread them out where he could look between them. I think that's really the only solve for that.
In my situation, I couldn't go any further down using this bracket.
Yep.
And what I look for is at least getting about even with the top of the.
Yep. Well, and so, had you lowered it down, you're back to leaning forward, looking over the steering wheel again.
Right.
I mean, there's just not a fix. You know, the fix is to mount them on the side. And by the way, there is flat spot right there that you could mount one with like a balls out or something else. Matter of fact, you guys are about to see, since I added the Garmin to the front of mine, I'm bringing my Humminbird 10 back here, and I've ordered a balls out mount to put there, which is a neat mount. I had it on my last boat. But it's a real fishable platform. It's not a real fast boat, which I don't know why I had in my head it was a real fast boat, but you know, it's a high 60s, low 70s boat, plenty fast for most of us that aren't dying to go real fast. And I suspect if we strip this thing down naked, you know, with a new prop.
Well, if we took all the crap out of here, it goes up to 74.
So you've had it 74 before?
Yeah.
With anything in it at all?
Yeah, it had stuff in it, but not near what it's loaded.
Not the
right
junk
now.
you got in it right now. Empty live well is probably half a tank kind of a deal?
Yeah. Half
Okay.
a quarter of a tank, I think it was.
Yeah, so it'll motor, it'll get on down the road. So I will say, if that's the case, my boat's never touched 74. It's fastest, I think, 72.1. It's actually back in one of those prop testing videos. Was that with the 23 or 24
That
pitch?
was the 24.
And remind me again what prop's on here today?
This is a 23 three-blade Fury.
Fury, okay. So I'm also hearing, by the way, and I'm dying to check it, I'm hearing more and more guys running Tempest, especially on Rangers, and I'm also hearing some talk about Bravos. So I would love the opportunity to run some more props if I can get a hold of them. If I do, we'll do another set of prop videos. So we're going to fish a little more, and I'd still like to catch a good fish up here today, but at some point I got to go back to the house and help Honey with the baby. But stick around. If we don't get any more footage, I'll get a little bit of exterior footage. Actually, now that I'm thinking about that, Scott, talk about what you know about the trailer on this boat, since we don't have a trailer to look at.
I don't know the manufacturer. I know it's not built by Caymus themselves. Somebody else is manufacturing it, and right off the top of my head, I can't remember who it is. But it's somebody that builds trailers for quite a few other people.
And you said there is a trailer brake?
No.
Oh, there's no trailer brake available?
I mean, there's trailer brakes, but you're talking about like an emergency brake with a handle
so
or something.
You can set it when you park it?
Yeah, no, there's nothing.
I think there is.
Not on mine.
Yeah, but I think it's an option.
It might be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'll make a note, guys, because I remember reading the website before I did this, that was an option. And you can also get fiberglass or metal fenders, I think.
Correct.
So that's kind of cool, according to what you want. And you know, I'm real torn about that, because the fiberglass is better looking, but if you ever blow a tire with a fiberglass fender, you know what you're buying?
Yep.
A tire and another fiberglass fender. So I guess that could go either way on that. Swing away tongue.
Yep.
Do you know if it's oil bath hubs or grease?
Oil bath
hubs. Okay.
All right.
It's real similar to the trailers we had at Triton before they started building their own at the Ranger factory, and those trailers weren't that good.
There you go. Hot sports opinion. Not that good.
That just wasn't. They weren't as good as the other ones.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys, one last shot here. Hot. God, it's got to be 85 degrees. Live well's completely full, so 300 pounds of water back there, and still almost 3/4 a tank of gas. So let's check the whole shot. I'm gonna count it in my head. Punch it, honey. Not really any difference. No. Okay, guys, Batman here. Let's score the Caymus. So, as before, scoring is the same across all the boats. 0 to 9 is less than average, 10 to 12 is average, 13 to 16 is good, 17 to 18 is excellent, 19 to 20 blew my socks off. Nobody scored a 19 or a 20 yet. I don't know if anybody's even scored an 18 in any of the 5 categories or in the contingency money category. So the overall scoring then will be those 5 categories. You could score 100, it's not going to happen. 0 to 45 is less than average, 46 to 60 is average, 61 to 80 is good. And as I've talked about, for something to score, for me to be interested in a boat that's going to score in the average or the good category even, it'd have to be a real value proposition for me. In other words, it had to be a boat that just wasn't expensive as the boats we've looked at so far. 81 to 90 would be excellent. We've not had a boat score excellent yet, as I've talked about. Every boat, and I'm being stingy with my points, okay? But every boat has some things I like and some things I don't like, and it's my test, and so I'm looking for my boat, not your boat. So 81 to 90 is excellent. 91 plus, again, I just don't see that happening. I don't think anybody can make that boat, but I may be surprised. Everybody keeps telling me, oh, this boat will or that boat will, and we'll find out. So we'll start out with fishability. So the positives on the boat are the gunnels are low. The front deck at the seat poles is even wider than my 521C. It's not as wide as the L boat, but it's wider than the Charger and certainly wider than the Bass Cat. It's stable at 1.5 degrees, and you saw I kind of figured out in this video that the boats that I've tested so far that are dual consoles all have a little bit of a list, or what I call a tip to the starboard side, because I mean a console, I would guess, probably weighs 100 pounds. It'd be pretty easy to figure out, but they're not light. And most boats, and again, this is an argument I've had all along, you got your console on that side, and most boats put your storage, the big storage box, on the front starboard side of the boat, and the rod box on the port side. And we all carry more weight in our storage boxes, generally, not all, but most of us do, than we do in our rod boxes. So the boat does have a little bit of a list to the starboard side, but even then it's a stable boat, as you saw in the list test, about 1.5 degrees at worst to any side standing on the back deck, off of floating center level, which again had a little bit of a list. It's got a traditional box layout. I don't score that. You see it's on the positive and the negatives because nobody's blown me away with something different, but I'm leaving that opportunity out there for somebody to show me something I haven't seen before. And then the rod strap to the box, I like that, but then I also made it a negative because, as Scott pointed out, it's handy to open it up and you don't drop rods in the boat, in the water, but
you can't put a lot of rods up there. And as I started looking at it throughout the day after he said that to me, he's right. About 6 or 7 rods are the most you can put up there. And it's not unusual for me to have 8, 9, 10 rods, because I generally like to stack them on one side as much as I can. So, and I like his idea, by the way. I don't know that maybe several of these manufacturers shouldn't consider putting a set of latches up there, right? A set of anchors inside the boat, so you can choose to put one on the rod box lid or actually on the deck according to how many rods you have up there. I think that's actually a great idea. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Scott have that in his boat soon. I'm okay with the trim buttons, but I don't love them. And again, the more I do this, the more I see things I do and I don't like. I like having a separation of my buttons on my deck. And as Chris talked about in the Ranger L boat, you know, if he tries to use a rod butt or a foot to trim the boat up or down, it's not unusual for him to turn his live well off, which is a real problem, right? If you don't know you did. If you see it happen, you can fix it. But if you don't realize you've done it, you may be 15 minutes or 4 hours later before you'll realize you've turned off your live wells and maybe killed your fish. So I'd like to see better separation of my switches up there. Of all of them so far, the one I really liked was the Bass Cat and the Charger, where they put them over on the port side under the trolling motor. They're protected and they're much easier to get to. So I like that better. So Fishability is a 17. It's a boat I would be really happy fishing out of on a daily basis, just with a couple of little tweaks. One of which I'd make myself, that additional rod box or that additional rod strap anchor spot. You see a lot of stuff in the fit and finish in the positives. So, and I actually had to kind of double them up because I ran out of bullet points. So it's got good carpet. It's got really pretty glass on the boat. It's a padded front deck. It's a solid feel running, and you see I've put an asterisk there. So my only regret on this boat review was Texoma was just slick calm that day. It was a weekday. There were no big boats out. I really didn't get a sense for how this boat would perform in rough water. Scott says it performs really well in rough water. Sorry, I need a sip there. But I didn't see that firsthand, so I cannot say it felt solid in what we did, but as you know, there's a difference between running across glass smooth water and hitting 1 and 3 and 5 foot chops and waves. But it felt like a solid boat to me, but with that little bit of a disclaimer there, I didn't really get to drive it in rough water. And most of the day, Scott drove it. I drove it actually quite a bit too. It's got a lot of driver and passenger leg room. And it's funny, I give them a positive and a negative both for the seats. I really like the seats. They're very, very comfortable to ride across the lake. I like the way they feel. You don't bottom out in them. They're good looking seats. But you see, I dinged them on the negative. It's harder for me to get up and down in them, especially after I fished all day long when my knees and my hips hurt. And to me, going down the lake in rough water, if my legs are parallel, I can cushion that land a little bit with my legs. You can't do that when your legs are way out in front of you. So it's not just that. I think as I go through this process, I'm discovering I prefer a little higher ride in a boat. It's not something that's going to make me or cause me not to buy a boat, but it's just a preference I've discovered as I've gone through this process. I have no fiberglass shop feedback. So nobody said they've seen problems with the boat, and nobody said that they're super well built. But I think that's because it's a brand new boat brand. I mean, they only came out in 2018. There's not a ton of them around yet. So I put it under positive. I didn't score a point either way. There's just nothing out there from my fiberglass guys. Not one of the 6 fiberglass shops I've talked to mentioned Caymus, and I firmly believe it's because they're not seeing Caymuses yet, or not seeing them in big numbers. The boat has a huge live well. And maybe too big, I don't know. I mean, that's 47 gallons of water you're carrying around with you. Obviously, you can control that to some degree, but your overflow is your overflow. I like it because in Texas summers, you know, I mean, if you fish this past weekend, the water's still 88 degrees in August. So the more water, the more oxygen, the more likely your fish are going to survive. So I guess I would assign that as a positive, which I did here, but it has great big live wells in it. I mean, 30% bigger than what are in my Ranger, and I thought they were big. The boxes in the boat are finished nicely. And I added that, again, I put a little asterisk to remind myself here. All the boats I've reviewed so far are that way. But I saw a boat the other day that's not, that I'm going to review later. So I thought I better go ahead and mention now that the Bass Cat, the Rangers, the Chargers, and this boat, the Caymus, all have nicely finished boxes. So as Scott said in the video, they're not just the hull of the boat with wires hanging down. They're finished out boxes. Caymus puts a bottom in them, as does Ranger, by the way. That decking bottom that I really like. So they're nice boxes, as all the boats I've reviewed so far. The metal piece where you fold, when you close your rod box lid with that twisty, with a piece of metal under it, they've put a piece of metal there to protect your fiberglass. That was why hadn't anybody thought of that moment to me? I mean, I have 2 boxes that are chipped from me closing lids, not having the lid in the right position, the latch in the right position. That's brilliant. I don't know why nobody's thought of that. By the way, I talked about this in the video. I really like those positive latches that they have on 2 of the boxes, and somebody told me today Phoenix has that throughout the boat. I can't remember now what he called it, but I'm really curious to see if that's the case. If that's the case, that's really, really nice. So you don't have to twist the box. You just pull the little lever up and the box opens, and when you close it, it automatically locks itself. That's cool. I'd like to see that throughout this boat, and again, I'm learning as I go through this process. I'd like to see it in all boats. As I talked about, I love the cockpit flooring not being carpet. It dries faster. I just like it better. I think it's a cleaner look. I think Vexus has gone to it as well. A couple of guys have said they don't like it because it gets slick. Caymus will give you the option, and it's a no-cost option. If you'd rather have carpet, they'll put the carpet in the boat for you. But personally, any boat I have in the future, I really want flooring down there other than carpet. It also is way easier to keep clean for me. As I talked about with the Charger, I really like having 2 completely separate live wells, so I only have to fill up a live well if I'm fishing a team tournament, and we don't need a second live well, or if I'm in an individual BFL or a Toyota Series and my co-angler, or I don't have a fish, I don't have to run around with both live wells completely full. So I really like that. I already talked about that. Sorry, I made a note of that twice there, that steel box closure protectors. That's brilliant. The trolling motor wedge I put in there as a positive. I don't know that it makes a big difference, but again, it's an attention to detail Caymus is coming out with, and so I like that. I made it as a positive. I've already talked about the seats. I think the back deck lids, the back deck boxes may be a little bit smaller than this boat. I've not been measuring those, and I'm not going to start because, as I've talked about, I probably already carry too much junk around. But if the live wells are 30% bigger, there's only so much back deck, and we've already measured. We know the back deck is relatively the same size. So my thinking is those boxes are fractionally smaller, not substantially so. From a performance standpoint, again, 2 asterisks here because I didn't get to drive the boat in rough water. Scott did, and let me say something about that. So Scott says it's a great ride. Scott was in a Triton before. Now, granted, he was in a 22-foot Triton, but all of our opinions on how a boat performs and rides are based upon opinions of other boats we had, right? If a guy, and yes, that's a little Irish whiskey to help me with my review here. If a guy comes out of a Gambler, everything's going to feel slow to him, right? If a guy comes out of a Skeeter Wrangler, a 17-foot, 25-year-old boat, everything's going to feel like it rides great. So Scott says it rides good, and I believe him, but that's based upon his history of being in Tritons. I think my Ranger rides better than a Triton, so that's my only regret is it seems like a good big water boat, and it seems like it would be a dry ride, but that's based on what Scott's telling me. It did have a really nice hole shot, as quick as I think maybe just within a second of what my Ranger has, and he had more crap in his boat than I carry around. It's faster than similar sized Rangers, so as you heard him say, he hit 74 in that boat just with him in it. I think my top speed was 70.1. They're roughly the same weight boat within 25 pounds. My boat's 4 inches longer. same beam roughly. It's really not much different. So it's a little bit faster boat, but not a lot faster boat. You know, again, he's probably carrying a little bit more stuff around than I do most of the time. So the fact that I mean, just the fact is, it's a mile to 3 miles an hour faster than my boat. The way he had that boat loaded the other day with live wells full and 3/4 of a tank of gas, so 35, 38 gallons of fuel, I don't think I could have run 69.8. I think I'd have been running high 68s. So it's a little bit faster. The boat does have a lot of lift. You can't hear me talking when we're running down the lake, but and I've seen that in all these boats, right? They've really figured out how to keep those noses on those boats up. The negative is it's not, I mean, just frankly, Bass Cat or even Triton fast. Moon Pie runs a TR21, I think it's called a TRX. That's a really fast, big boat with the same motor on it. And he and I in it, we've run 72, 73 miles an hour loaded down. So it's not as fast as a Triton to me. Now, everybody's experience in their boats are different. The other thing I noticed about this boat, and there may be an adjustment for this, so I didn't ding it, but it seems like it's a little stiffer, or it is. It's a little stiffer steering boat than I have noticed before. And when I said that to him, Scott said that Brady, his team partner, had made the same comment when he drove the boat. I'm sorry, I didn't score that. So performance on the boat, I scored it a 16. Not quite excellent. I think it's a fine boat. Had I been able to drive it around in 3 or 4 footers, it might have scored 17. It might have scored 15. I don't know, but based on what Scott said and what I experienced personally, I scored the boat a 16 on a performance standpoint. Good, 1 point away from excellent. Positives, it's got USB in a box, as we've talked about. I like being able to plug my phone in out of the weather. You can mount a 16-inch graph in that front, in the console. That's a great big graph. So that's really nice that you can adjust both seats. Probably not as important on the passenger side, but heck, it's just a nice little option they added to there. Boat's got a lot of storage. It's got ventilated storage. It's got a padded front deck. As you saw, it's got really good sump access. Now, the way Scott's got it set up is a little bit more different, but then again, that's the next thing too. It's got a giant space right there in the middle, and you see he put that big plain old box. By the way, I'll put a link to that box below in the description as I did in the first video. That's a cool idea. So you can carry your tools. I don't carry near the tools I used to because I don't have the space for them. And I don't like having this in the front of the boat, but I really like where that is back there, and I think that's cool where they've got that where you could either put a prop or a storage box, or you could put a smaller storage box and a prop back there. That'd be really easy to do. It appears to have a very nice ice chest. I noticed it held ice all day long when we were out there. That fast water pickup, as I've talked about, I'm looking for new, revolutionary, innovative things. I think that's a really cool idea. Somebody told me that's been something in saltwater boats forever, and as you guys know, Earl Bentz made saltwater boats with Caymus before he made the bass boats, so I think that's correct. But he's building saltwater boats as well, so I think that's something they pulled from saltwater boats. It does have a driver's cleat and a passenger's cleat mid-boat to tie the boat up with, as we've talked about. I like that. That's something I don't have in my boat. I've just seen recently, and it's in the newer Rangers too. There is net storage. I have heard on the Tritons, guys having problems with their nets blowing out. Scott said he's never had that problem, but he was in a 22-foot Triton, which is probably not as fast. And then I put P-Spot on here. It's got those little decks on the back with grip tape where you can stand and hold your power pole and lean out over the side of the boat to do that kind of stuff. Negatives on it, again, same problem every boat has had. If you flush mount a graph, the steering wheel is in the way. I don't think anybody's going to be able to solve that, but I'm going to gripe about it until somebody does. They don't have a real good locking system for the batteries. They're using those straps. Again, I've talked about how much I like the Bass Cat. The two things I really did not like, actually, and there's one more here I need to add. I don't like the dash setup. So what Caymus has done is they've given you one big tack, as you see there, that round tack, and in the bottom of it, they've given you the Mercury Smart Gauge, and I'm sure whatever Yamaha's or Suzuki has something similar. That's the gauge package. So you can't have, and so the reason I don't like that, my experience with my Mercury Smart Gauges is at speed, they're hard to read. The boat's moving around, you're moving around. My eyesight's not great to start with. but they're hard to read. It's a little digital. In certain sunlight conditions or in wet conditions, they're impossible to read. I want to have specifically, now the tach's easy to read even though it's analog. I want to have a water pressure gauge all the time I can see. I want to have a trim gauge all the time I can see. And I want to have my oil pressure gauge up there that I can read all the time. And that's not the case on this boat. So I don't like the gauge setup. The only option you see, I made a note down there, is that Viper system. Now the Viper system is crazy cool. It's got live well cameras, so running down the lake you can see what your fish are doing. It's a touch screen, but it's almost 3,000 bucks. I think it's 25 or 2,700 bucks add. I would not add that. And frankly, if I were to buy this boat, I would be trying to convince, or I wouldn't be, I would have the dealer give me some additional gauges that would just have to be aftermarket installs, because I could not run this boat with the gauge setup. And honestly, with Earl being a former race boat driver, it kind of blows me away that there's not a better gauge setup up there. But you know, the Mercury Smart gauges are great, but again, they're hard to read at speed or in inclement conditions. I think I said that wrong, but you know what I'm trying to say. So I don't like the little driver's box door. It's just a little door with a little flippy clip that just doesn't seem real secure to me. It seems like they could have spent just a few more dollars and put a much better door on that that's going to stay locked a little better. I had a little problem with it in the boat. So that's where I said I don't like the driver's, oh, well, I'm sorry, there's two things there. So that's the driver's side. I've talked about this before. They have those plastic slide out boxes on the passenger side, on the port side, as basically another glove box. I don't like those. I don't like them personally. They seem a little bit less expensive, I'll say cheap, and they do rattle, especially going down the lake. So I don't like those. I understand they're just using space that's available down there, but I don't personally like those. And the last thing, that's a problem, and it's the same problem that was in the Charger, and a guy argued with me about it, and you're wrong if you're still watching my videos. The descriptions of what the buttons are for are not backlit. So in the dark, you cannot see what buttons you're pushing without getting your phone out and turning your light on and shining it down there. I asked Scott, and he said that is correct. And he's actually, when I asked him, I don't think I've got it on camera, what are the two things you would change in this boat? That was the first thing he said, was that. The second thing he said was funny, just like we've all talked about. He'd rather have the trim buttons where they're easier to get to. So that dash panel, that's an easy fix those guys can do, but that's I don't like that at all. So from an amenity standpoint, I score the boat 16 good. Again, kind of like with Charger, just a couple little changes here would score this boat an 18, but nobody does everything perfectly. So 16 is good, and about as good as anybody has scored in this category. On trailers and other stuff, which is the trailer and kind of my catch-all of other things, the positives are you can get a trailer step option. It's got LED backup lights, swing tongue, oil bath hubs. That's kind of price of admission right now for a good trailer. It does have a parking brake option you can get, so you can set it. You don't have to chalk your trailer. It's torsion axle, and you can add shocks. I would actually love to pull a boat that's torsion axle and shocks. You got to think that's really going to ride well. It may be total overkill to add shocks to torsion axles, but I thought that was cool. Good dealer access, and this is actually surprising to me for a brand new boat brand. I mean, they just created this boat brand in 2018. There's 2 or 3 dealers within 100 miles of Rayburn. So, you know, where there's not a Charger dealer anywhere around, there's several Caymus dealers. So kudos to those guys for making market penetration. I didn't talk about it much, but there is, you saw in the first video, there's a good oh crap handle for your co-angler down below your right side. And you'll look at it and you'll go, well, it's the same handle Ranger uses. It's not, and there's two differences. The Ranger is a ring with a pole in the middle, so it's really hard to get your hand in there, and extremely hard to get your hand in there with winter gloves on. And we're in winter gloves all the time in a boat. The other difference is the Ranger will pull out about that far, so you're really almost reaching under the seat. This one pulls all the way up beside the seat. It's just a much more comfortable handle, and something as I've bounced co-anglers around over the years, and now riding in that side of the boat some, I've come to appreciate a good old crap handle on the co-angler side. On the negatives, to go to a fiberglass trailer fender or to go to a stainless steel fender, it's an upcharge. And that seems, for the price of this boat, for it to be a quality, what I was calling a premium price boat, it seems like that should not be an upcharge to get that on your trailer. And then the other issue is the brand's less than 3 years old. And I'll talk about that more in just a second. But for trailer and other stuff, I scored it a 15. And I think the reasons for that are pretty obvious right there. It's just not quite the same trailer that I've seen on the Basscat or the Rangers. And of course, you know how I felt about the Charger one. So 15 for trailers and other stuff. So I score the Caymus CX21 81 excellent. That's the best score of any boat I've had so far. Obviously somebody can score better than that. And by the way, I keep having guys ask me, what boat are you going to buy? I still have no idea, right? I'm not sitting on any of these videos. You're seeing them within less than a week of when I do the reviews. I did this review last Friday. You saw the first part of it Tuesday, and you'll see this part of it on Thursday. My concern, and by the way, my friends are laughing at me. What they're saying I'm doing here with these videos is making sure nobody ever gives me a deal on a boat. Because I've already told you guys, I didn't do this to say this is the greatest boat ever like a lot of people on YouTube have done. I did this to shop for a boat and make a decision and make an informed decision and tell you what I like and what I dislike. Here's my concern with the Caymus boat. It's a 2-year-old brand. So I don't know what the resale's going to be. And man, I hate saying this, but I got to say it. Earl Bentz has started, that I know of, Hydrosports, Stratus, and Triton, none of which he still owns. And by the way, you know, there's not many. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Pierce family doesn't own Basscat anymore, right? I'm almost positive they got bought by somebody a few years ago. And if they don't just say it below. You don't have to yell at me. But I mean, White River Group and a bunch of others are rolling these boat manufacturers up, and they have done it for years and years and years. But that's just a little bit of a concern for me. It is certainly not something that would cause me not to buy this boat. The benefit, by the way, of it being a new brand is they've kind of taken the best of a bunch of other boats, right? The width of a Ranger, the finish, the water scoop from saltwater boats, the cockpit flooring probably also from saltwater. I mean, they've really pulled a lot of good things together in this boat, and they're making a really, really good looking boat. But that's my concern in this boat, and so I'm going to tell you, this is a boat I'm considering. Now, again, I got a bunch of more boats to look at, but everything else I've looked at so far, I pretty well said that's not my next boat. This one is in the running to be my next boat. I'm just going to leave it like that. But guys, I'm going to look, oh, by the way, I think I'm going to get to drive a Bullet this weekend. So if you don't see me next week, sorry, it's been nice knowing you. But I'm going to look at a Bullet. I'm going to look at Phoenix, a couple of Phoenixes, Falcon. Somebody asked me to look at Stratus. I looked it up. White River Group's closed Stratus down. They're not producing boats right now. I'm going to look at a Nitro. I'm going to look at a couple of Skeeters. I got a lot of boats to look at still. But right now, 81, highest score so far. It's a boat I'm considering. It's a boat I like. Like you should, before I buy this boat, I would spend another day in it on an ugly day. I'm not going to buy a boat based upon driving it in a big circle on a nice day. I'm going to take it out and bang it around a little bit. So if I get a chance to do that, by the way, I'll post that as sort of an addendum to this video. But for now, 81, best score so far. The first boat to crack the excellent space is the Caymus. All right, let's talk really, really quickly, because I know I've gone on and on about this. about the contingency program. So they have 3 levels: platinum, bronze, and silver. Maybe I may not have those right. The top level, the platinum one, if you're in a Yamaha powered, pays more money. It'll pay $10,000 in 26 different team circuits that I counted. I may have missed 1 or 2, but that for us Texas guys includes Bass Champs and Texas Team Trail if they have 60 plus boats, which they do in every tournament. You can win 10 grand if you're in a Yamaha powered boat, but for us Mercury guys and other power packs, power heads, $7,000. And then the next level down, Bassmaster Elites, if you win the Classic, if you fish the FLW Tour, a BFL win, an ABA win, an Open win, a Bassmaster College qualifier, or more than 60 other team events with 60 plus boats, it's $7,000 no matter what kind of motor you got on the back of the boat. And then in the last level, it names just about it. And by the way, Outlaw Outdoors, you're not on here. You need to get on the horse here. About 150 I counted other circuits in that bottom tier of $500 win. And by the way, I didn't mention that on that top circuit and maybe on a couple of these other circuits. Please read this for yourself. This is from a high level. There's also a highest finisher. If somebody in a Caymus doesn't win, it's not as much money. It's less money, but there is something there. You do have to join. You have to be an original owner, but I think there's a secondary payout if you're a subsequent owner. I didn't go digging into that, but you have to join Caymus Cash, and it's $100 a year. That seemed a little bit expensive to me. Ranger's quite a bit cheaper. And by the way, so I kind of went back and looked at the other ones. Bass Cat is free if you're a new boat owner, but it's only for the first 2 years of the boat. So that's kind of how they've headed that off a little bit. What Caymus says is, and I like this much better than the way Bass Cat did it. So Bass Cat said, for example, in 2020, it's got to be an 18, 19, or 20, and within 24 months of date of purchase. These guys just say it's got to be a new boat within 36 months of date of purchase, which the way I read it then, if you found a 19 still sitting on a showroom floor somewhere today and bought it, you got 3 more full years. They don't really care what the model year is on the boat. They do limit you to 3 wins a year. That's not highest place finisher, but wins. So overall, I think it's got matter of fact, I think it's got even more team circuits than Bass Cat did, and Bass Cat had a ton. It's good for Bass Cat. It's good for team stuff, and it's good for individual stuff. So I score them 17 excellent, which I think, I don't remember for sure, but I think Ranger and Bass Cat also scored either 16 or 17 excellent. So it's a very, very good contingency. Actually, the only real knock on it that I saw was $100 a year seemed pretty expensive, but if you think you're going to win, you're probably foolish not to do it. So, oh, and the other things I saw that you have to have on a Caymus hat and you have to have a Caymus sticker on your truck, I think, which, whatever. So anyway, so there you go. So that's a contingency prize package. I will be back next week with more boat reviews. I'll have a Rayburn report up for you guys. I got some more really good stuff from Jones Trolling Motor that I've just not had a chance to edit yet, but you guys are going to really enjoy that stuff. And you know, guys, I was going to end the video right there, but if you stuck around this long, I'm going to give you a little bit of bonus footage. This will be in a future video too, because we fished this day, but this is Bassmaster. There's only like 2 or 3 guys that have already qualified for the Bassmaster Classic this year. Now, this is Chris Jones from from Oklahoma, fishing with me at Rayburn the other day, and let's just title this "The Danger of Flip-Flops." Enjoy, boys. We'll see you soon.
I said, I want to pull out here just deep spot, spin an hour, and let's see what we can get. Ow!
You okay?
Yeah.
You don't.